Welcome to Post-Burnout.com interviews. My name is Aaron Kavanagh and I'm the website's founder and editor-in-chief. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. Our interviews are mainly recorded to be transcribed, but every now and again we release the audio in a series we call Post-Burnout.com interviews. If you enjoy what we do, be sure to subscribe. In this edition of Post-Burnout.com interviews, we speak with Harry Lloyd of the British indie folk project Waiting for Smith. Harry talks about the project's upcoming album Raised Up, how he accidentally ended up making an album while on holiday in South Africa, working with the Grammy Award-winning producer Denton Supple on the album, how the project started as Harry was recovering from a severe back injury, storytelling, how different cultures influence his music, overcoming shyness, how Brexit affected his travelling, and more. I also want to note that this interview was recorded in August of this year, and at that time the latest single from Waiting for Smith was Let Light In. In September they released a new single called White Light of Love.
Got it.
There we go.
Hey.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thanks for talking to me.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So the first thing I kind of wanted to ask was, I like before we talk about Waiting for Smith, I'd like to kind of go back just before that and ask, like, when you were kind of growing up, when I guess, like, what was your kind of first introduction to kind of music that you remember, and was it always something that you kind of wanted to do?
Yeah, I think so. I think the earliest memory of it was dancing to, it was either like Prince or James Brown, I think. And I was like 3 years old, and I just felt like the rhythm and was like, what is this? Like, this is so good. I think I ended up actually trying to learn how to moonwalk, and I had my first sort of childhood accident trying to moonwalk, I think when I was like 4 or something.
Okay.
I was like straight into it. And I remember I started my first band age about 10. And yeah, I joined as the drummer and the singer. I used to sing from behind the kit.
Yeah.
And I just remember the excitement of that feeling of being in a band, and you're all connected in some way. This thing that you share, and the reaction that people kind of got from it, and how much joy it spread. That was my first kind of early memories of music, was what it can do to the mind and to the body and to the heart, and how important it is for all of us to, just allow us to see that things always turn out okay, and that things are always there to help us in the end.
What sort of music would you have been playing when you were 10?
10, probably age 8, I was playing a lot of like Sum 41.
Yeah.
And Blink 182 and a lot of that like rock, punk, like pop stuff.
Yeah.
But I also really liked quite early on, like discovering like a lot of the like lyricists like Dylan and Leonard Cohen and stuff like that. Like when I heard them, they'd always kind of make me walk towards it, and I would think, what are they speaking about? What does that mean? Like you feel some of those lyrics, but you don't necessarily know at that age what it means. But you feel it. You feel like how important it is in some way.
I noticed you kind of traveled around a lot when you were very young. I was wondering, did you like? Because when I think of your music, and when I was kind of like reading up about you in preparation for this interview, it seems to me like your music is very influenced by kind of different cultures that you interact with, the different places you've been. But I think there's also a kind of spiritual, sort of metaphysical consciousness to your music as well. So I was wondering, like, do you think, for example, when you go to one area, even if it's just say within the UK, because I believe you moved around from London to Oxford, if I'm correct, which isn't like the greatest leap, I know, but like, you know, but even then, like yeah, exactly. But then you kind of see like, okay, this kind of music's popular in this area, this kind of music's popular here, especially like in London, where there's so many like different, it's such a melting pot that like, everyone kind of brings their own kind of cultural music to there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I love different cultures and different musics. Like, I mean, are you from Dublin originally?
Yeah, I'm from Dublin. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, a lot of my cousins are Irish.
Yeah.
So like, I love like a lot of that traditional folk music, and I love the joy in that, and the way that it's threaded into the culture of kind of like, it's all going to be fine, and like we just go out dancing, and or have a little beer or something, and then tomorrow's tomorrow. And I feel the same in when I spent some time in Morocco. There's kind of music is very much within like the Berber culture, which is the one of the other cultures in Morocco, and they a lot of them grow up in the desert, and they travel around with these instruments and drums, and there's that connection immediately to rhythm and to nature, and the way that like nature works and the cycles of nature is very much connected to the way that they make music. And so I feel with different places and different parts of the world, you see how the culture is informed by the music, and vice versa, and what that does. And just like touring around the States and like listening to like a lot of like rock bands and stuff like that, and you literally see like that expression of music like on the street. You see how people are behaving, like it's almost like the music influences the behavior, and vice versa. And I've always been interested in that. Like I love languages, I love traveling, I love learning about like new people and how and why people do the way why they are the way they are, you know.
Yeah, and I think I think that kind of appreciation for the culture really shines through in your music. I think like it seems to me like, you know, some people can kind of go abroad, but they're like not too invested in the actual culture where they are. They just want to do like touristy stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't get that impression at all from you. I mean, it seems very like ingrained, like you really want to study and learn and kind of actually take something from the places you've been, rather than just kind of being like, oh yeah, I was there, but I don't really remember it. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, like, but how do you think that kind of gives you a different perspective then as a songwriter, like having interacted with so many different cultures and so many different places?
I like the idea that you can, in a song, hopefully, or through music, you can better understand where someone's coming from, like the angle that they look on life, and therefore you write from a perspective of kind of a compassionate one, I guess. Like, because I remember this story, my dad, like when I was about 7 or something, we were at this like petrol station, and we were going through this petrol station, and he would always be like, we'd stop off and he's like, oh, you could pick a chocolate bar or something.
Yeah.
So I go in and I'd be like, there's so many, I'm quite high energy, like I can be almost ADHD. So I'd be looking at all these colors and being like, whoa, there's so much choice. Like, which one do I go for? Like, how am I going to make the right decision? So I'd be in there for like 5 to 10 minutes, just being like, which one should I go for? And so my dad would be outside, just like chilling and probably talking to someone and having a cigarette. And he was talking to this guy, and I came out, and the guy was kind of quite like, beaten up clothes, like really like long scraggly beard. And I was thinking like, I asked my dad like, oh, how do you know that guy, Dad? Where'd you meet him, kind of thing? He's like, oh no, I don't know him. And I was like, oh, why did you end up talking to him? And he said, well, because, you know, everyone's got a story to tell.
Yeah. And
I really feel that like as long as you ask the right questions, then you can kind of connect with everyone and anyone. And that's, I guess, one expression that I like to put through my music is the idea that it's music for everyone. It's music for anyone to find more joy and more positivity and more contentment or happiness in their life, as I have been working on in my life. And I'm really grateful to have found my joy. And I want to share that with the world, and I want to share that with others and hope that they find it too.
One thing that I think is really great about music is kind of, it's a great icebreaker, I think, between cultural divide, because you might be talking to someone who, you know, doesn't speak the same language you don't speak the same language as them. And there's something about music that I think like, I don't know, you can kind of pick up on. This is a weird little story, but I remember when I was like a kid, I went to Spain, and they did like a little theater production of The Lion King. I couldn't speak Spanish, but it's like, I was just into it, you know what I mean? Just because like the music and stuff. But what I think is like really interesting is that, like, you know, the other good thing is as well is that, like, you know, with music, you don't have to understand exactly every lyric that's being sang. So, you know, you can listen to a song in German or a song in Spanish or Russian or any language, and it's like, I don't know, you can kind of get into it still. Do you find that too is a good like icebreaker when going to different places?
Yeah, totally find that. I mean, I spent some time in Cuba as well, and I remember I was just learning guitar, and I could play a bit of piano. I was learning a few chords then, but I traveled everywhere with a guitar just because you go to a place and you turn up as the guy with the guitar, and they're just like, come have some chicken with a boil, please sit down. And suddenly you're jamming like with some people not really knowing how to play very well at that moment. And just there's an immediate, like you say, icebreaker where you just go, we're all from the same thing. Like, and that's kind of what I believe. Everything's connected. And when you play music to someone, it kind of, there's some sort of immediate reminder of that feeling. And so people are so welcoming. They like are so hospitable when you turn up with an instrument. Even they haven't even heard you play yet, but they're already like, I'm sure they're an all right guy, you know? Yeah. And there's just, I don't know, there's something about that which is really nice. So yeah, I definitely do find it an icebreaker for sure.
Did you ever have any kind of shyness in terms of playing music in front of other people when you initially began, or were you always kind of confident in your ability?
Yeah, I definitely was. Around the age I started my first band, I definitely was quite shy. Like I found it hard to make eye contact, although you probably wouldn't believe that now. And some of my friends said, I don't remember that about you, but I do remember not being able to like really look someone directly in the eye, and like having to learn to like shake someone's hand and be like, hey, how you doing? This is me, you're you, and let's connect, kind of thing. And so I definitely do remember that shyness. And then I think it later came about when I started to do a bunch of open mics, you know, where you turn up at an open mic show or something and play a couple of songs. And I found myself like getting on stage, and I would be able to play my songs and express my songs, but I couldn't be myself when I spoke. Yeah. You know, and so I was like, okay, that's a different skill that I'm going to have to learn. And I remember giving myself a bunch of open mics. I wrote down like 100 open mics, and I went to every one of them. And it was after 27, I remember, where I was like, hey, I'm being myself. That this is me. Like I can actually tell a joke as myself, and I can say hello to people and not feel like all weird and strange. And so yeah, I think it's a muscle. I think it's just something you train like anything else. You can get better at being yourself, just like you can get stronger in the gym.
Yeah. Totally. And the actual Waiting for Smith project then was kind of born of a tragedy in a way. I mean, it was kind of like of initial back injury, right, from a skiing accident. But like what I kind of liked about that was, you know, you didn't get cynical about it. You didn't let it get you down. You kind of like saw, I guess, a silver lining in the situation, where it was kind of like, okay, now I can focus. Like you're like, I'm still alive. You know, I'm still kind of able to do stuff. I'm still mobile. You know, I can, you know, still create music and do this thing that I always want to do. That would have been, if I'm correct, in about 2015, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the project kind of started like pretty quickly then, because like your first release, I believe, was in 2017. So yeah, so I mean, during that year, you were kind of, I don't know, how long were you kind of immobilized for, and how long were you studying music for?
It was I was in bed for most of a year, just because the operation was quite big, and it just, yeah, it totally took me out. But it gave me this amazing time, like, to really understand what it is I wanted to do. Like, so I was a ski instructor before that, and I loved doing that, and it was great, and it was well paid, and I got to learn languages with it, and French and Russian, and that was awesome, and it was like my university. But I was really yearning to do something really more of service, and really be able to spread like more of a message of joy through something. And then I remember just being in bed and just having all this time, so much time I had, you know, where most people are like, oh, I'm so busy, or I don't have enough time to do the things I want to do. That's all I had time to do, was just do the things I wanted to do within the reach of, you know, what I could do in terms of mobilization. And so I was like, right, I'll learn guitar. I'll get really good at guitar. So I learned guitar. I took lessons every week. Guy came to my bed. I read like all the great poets, like just like absolutely went through it until I was like, I never want to hear Yeats, like Yeats, like get him away from me. I'm done with poetry, please. No more poetry.
Yes.
I read that. I discovered this amazing book called the Tao Te Ching, which is like a ancient Chinese text, translates as the way. I don't know if you know about it, but that totally changed my life and really gave me a philosophy for life. And then I just wrote like every day, wrote new songs, and just really discovered exactly what it was I wanted to do and what I wanted to say and how I wanted to kind of spend my next years.
Yeah.
we don't get that. School doesn't prepare us for that, and sometimes we need that time to really just be like, wait, what do I want to do? Like, how if it was the end of my life, like, what would I want on my sort of little stone, or however you want to put it? Like, if there was a book about me, how would I want my book to look? What chapters? What would my chapters be? These kind of things, and we don't get the time sometimes to question those things. And I think it's so important. Otherwise, you get to certain ages and you're like, where am I? Who am I? What am I doing actually? Like, why am I going to this job that I don't like? And why are my friends assholes? Like,
yeah.
rather than being like, I've got great friends, I love my family. I think I'm on the road to kind of knowing what I love to do. And yeah, I think our education should be based about that. That's why I'm also so interested in education, and something I would love to go into later in life, definitely.
One thing I wanted to ask Sam was, because you were talking about you kind of had that year then we were kind of like studying music more, and obviously you had a foundation in music prior, but like you were kind of, I think, upping your skill. Would that be fair to say? Like you were kind of and trying to improve as a musician, as we all kind of do, I guess. But then, like during the COVID lockdown, I was wondering whereabouts you were based, and what did you do during that time? Then, having just spent like a year, only a couple of years prior, just studying.
So yeah, I started off. I was in London. I was about to move to London with my partner and girlfriend, and we got this place together. And then suddenly everything changed, and it was actually on the weekend I went to visit my parents. So I went to visit my parents, and then I didn't leave for like 3 months. So I spent 3 months with them and my girlfriend, and we got really close. We were like took turns to cook and talk to each other and connect more deeply. And from there, I really started to build Waiting for Smith, and we started to go into like parts of Europe, and we got a record played quite a lot on some big Indian radio stations, like in really new markets. It was really exciting.
Yeah.
And then I just one day was like, okay, we can move around a little bit more. I'm gonna go back to Holland and see what that's like, because my girlfriend's Dutch. So I went to Amsterdam, and then I never left Amsterdam. So then I ended up staying there for 2 years. And now I've moved to the countryside, the provinces of Utrecht, which is surrounded by nature. So I'm surrounded by the woods. I've got a veg garden. And I'm just super fucking happy here, man. Like, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I've never actually been to Utrecht, but I believe it does have a really good music scene. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's nice. Really nice. Yeah, and the nature's nice, and like little farms, and it's really cool. It's good. And Hilversum, just down the road, is where like so many, I think Michael Jackson did stuff, Prince did stuff, the Stones, lots of new pop artists like recorded massive albums over in Hilversum. So it's really something you don't really know about until you kind of come over here.
One thing I actually wanted to ask is because you were talking about like, kind of moving around and stuff. And obviously now you said you're based in the Netherlands, but I was wondering, did you find that after Brexit, it was kind of more difficult for you to move around, or has that not been an issue for you?
No, it wasn't that hard, much harder, I guess, apart from I had to get like a bunch of paperwork. I had to get, they call it in Dutch, verblijfsvergunning. I still find it hard to pronounce. Verblijfsvergunning. What? It's basically like an ID card here. Yeah. So I got that sorted, which is like my temporary right to stay for 5 years. And then in terms of that, all it changed really was things like importing. So like, for instance, I imported recently my piano, and that just cost me more money than it would because of import tax, which I wouldn't normally have had to pay. So stuff like that is a bit annoying, but I feel like I've kind of been lucky that I haven't really been affected by it that much. Apart from I had to move my bank account. My bank accounts got closed in the UK, which was kind of annoying. There was a bit of a hustle with that, but it gave me a good challenge to work on some other things. So
yeah. No, and that's the thing, is like I really get that sense from you that like I don't know, maybe this is incorrect or something, but you really just kind of rolled the punches. You kind of just like find the means of adapting to it. So you go, okay, the situation has changed now, but I still want to travel. I still want to do my music on an international scale. I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah, I totally. I mean, I've really got a mission with music. And I mean, one of my friends said something, and I spent a lot of time in South Africa where I recorded the latest album.
Yeah.
And one of my friends over there, Rich, said, I never call something a problem. I only call it a challenge.
Yeah.
And I really like that, because when you reword the usage that you use, it immediately makes it lighter. And so we all have the capacity to change the way that we talk in order to make our problems or our challenges easier to face.
Yeah, totally. And actually, just you brought it up there. So, "Let Light In" is the new single. Yeah. So it's this. It was recorded with I believe a choir in South Africa. Is that correct?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's a very shiny, very like you can feel the sunshine just in the music itself. I find,
So
it's
nice.
it's very like shimmering and very kind of like it's very positive. It's very uplifting. And yeah, I was wondering if maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it came about because 2 years ago, I decided, just before releasing one of the EPs, the Try Not to Try EP, I realized that I didn't think I was living my absolute best life. Like, I felt like I'm doing music and I'm enjoying it, but am I enjoying it to the full capacity I really want to be? And the answer was no. And so I was like, well, I'm gonna, in the same spirit of taking some time with my accident to really think about what I wanted to do, I'm going to go to South Africa. I'm going to see if I can basically stop my deals and everything for 3 months, 4 months, and then see what happens. So I let go of everything. I stopped, put everything on pause, and I went to South Africa to basically do nothing, to see what would happen. And I ended up writing this album, because I was just in a free state of mind. I was meeting lots of positive, amazing people, and there's such an amazing community over there in South Africa of people and such interesting perspectives on life. So I ended up writing this album, and Let Light In was one of the first tracks that I started basically playing, and it was my sort of start to the day. I get up and I go play that, like, heading up South Coast, Cape Town to West Ways, and I was just thinking, like, yeah, this is nice. It's like a sort of traveling mantra or something. And then my girlfriend Leon would sometimes sing it behind me. She would just sing along, while she was in the kitchen or something, or when we were walking along. And I was like, that sounds really great.
Yeah.
So then she ended up recording some of the backing on it behind me on the record. And then the choir came about because I'd always wanted to work with choirs. It was like been an absolute dream come true of mine to do it. And last year I did like a gospel session in the Pool Studios, which we released up on YouTube, from the last EP, a track called Tidal Wave, with the House Gospel Choir, a London gospel group. And just the feeling of the songs coming to life with the gospel choir was like, it was next level joy for me. I was like, this is epic.
Yeah.
We got to do more of this. And then when we were in South Africa, I was like, I really want to find a choir. So while I was waiting for the producer to come out and join me, we basically scouted. We met lots of people, local musicians, like djembe players, marimba players, you name it. We basically like met with people, and any person I really thought, you're a great player and you also just have an amazing positive attitude for life, you're on board.
Yeah.
And so I handpicked all these people, and the choir that we found they're from a township called the Iwai Township in Misetu settlement. And it's just based in Hout Bay, just outside Cape Town. And this choir was put together, and the whole mission of the choir is to get people out of extreme living conditions and get them through singing to make more of their life, like give them more opportunities, give them more income. And they came on my path, really. And I think I saw one of their posters or something, they were performing, and I thought, what's that? And then we ended up going to their concert, and I was just blown away. Like, it was like everyone, hairs on the back of my neck standing up, like so much power when they sung. And then we ended up contacting their management, and we got them to come for a day at the studio. And so we recorded, I think there was 4 or 5 tracks on the album which features them in the choir.
Yeah.
And then we had this middle 8-bit, which was like la 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 la. And I was like, that's always been redundant for me. I don't know what it really does. It's just the filling bit. I know it needs to be there, but I don't know what else should be there instead. And then me and Denton were like looking at each other. We're like, the choir should do something, like they're here, like this is the time, if anywhere. And so I talked to Luthani, who was the choir master, the guy basically running the choir. And I said, will you write me some lines in Xhosa, the local language, their local language? And it has clicks in it, which is very rhythmical, as you heard in the record. So I thought, this is so cool. This is so different. Let's try this out. And the translation is just really simple. I think it says something like, brighten your light, brighten your future. Really, really simple. Brighten your light, brighten your future in Xhosa. And so then they recorded the middle eight part in that. And the minute I heard it, I was like, yeah, this is it.
Yeah. And actually that's kind of interesting because it's kind of going back to what you were saying about being in like the pop punk band when you were a kid. I mean, there's that appreciation of kind of working in tandem to make like a beautiful melody or a beautiful song, even if it's just like, shouty pop punk music or whether it's beautiful choir music. There is, I think, an appreciation and understanding of the kind of collective work that goes into making the song and to making it work. As someone who's worked as both a solo artist and with larger projects, I mean, how do you feel the two differ then?
I don't know. I see Waiting for Smith as sort of, it's like a collective in some way of everyone that it meets along the way, but it's also like it comes from like my place or my personal philosophy, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I really love working in a band. Like I started Waiting for Smith originally as a band with friends, but the thing is with bands is you have to be really clear on your direction. Like if you look at the bands that survived, the U2s, the Coldplays, the maybe the new ones like Sports Team or something like that, they survive because they all believe completely intrinsically in exactly the same thing. I think they might have slightly differing like opinions on things, but generally you've got to kind of be on the same page. And if all those people in the room aren't on the same page and one wants to be like, I want to make more angry music, or the other one wants to do this or whatever, then it's really, really hard to come to any sort of agreement. And I found that when I did that with bands, it always got to the point where it was like one person would want to go like a totally different direction. And so I just thought, well, if I do it by myself, then I can sort of collaborate with people along the way. And that's something I really like. And I've always enjoyed doing that, like through traveling. Yeah. So I think the big difference is just difference of opinion, isn't it? And that you're less likely, I'm hoping, to fall out with yourself.
Yeah.
than you are with everyone else. But I think it's amazing, those bigger bands that have stayed together, like the Stones, like they're still together. Of course, they've had shifts and stuff, but I think that's phenomenal when you can keep that like brotherhood, because there is a brotherhood or a sisterhood when you're in a band like that close and you go that far with someone. They're your closest people, And
as a songwriter, it must be kind of flattering even then when you see people who take the song you want and are invested enough that they want to elevate it and they want to add to it and they want to contribute to it. Do you ever think about that as well?
Yeah, totally. I mean, this album is going to be called Raised Up, and it'll be out in January of next year. Next single, White Light of Love, will be out 8th of September. And then from then, after that album has been done, or during the release of that album, I want to be making a new one. And I don't exactly know what the title is yet, but the idea is it's a total collaboration album, all with other artists that I sort of really share the same philosophy as, like a mission to either spread joy or positivity through music. And I've got like sort of a list of artists that I've, written down, and just kind of hoping to attract those people. One or two already on board, which is really cool. But yeah, that's my next project, because I just think the idea of like co-writing with lots of other artists with similar philosophies could be really powerful. And it could just be like a record of like, I don't know, collecting the mass of all the work that those people have put in together to form this one piece of work would be really cool.
Yeah.
So that's a really exciting new project for me.
You mentioned earlier working with Denton, who's obviously, I think he's like a multi-Grammy Award-winning producer. He's most famous, I think, was for his work with Coldplay. I was wondering how you kind of linked up with him and how you guys started working together.
Yeah, we were connected by a guy in LA who's been really supportive of my music. And I met this guy through a radio plugger. So a radio plugger sent my track to a bunch of radio stations. Someone in LA picked it up, and this guy's name was Sat Bisler. And Sat called me up and he said, "Hey, I've heard your record traded in." And it kind of reminds me of a Gautier mix with Beck, early Beck. And I just really like it. And not only do I like it, but my wife likes it and my 2 kids like it. And they don't like anything I like. So there's something here. And so we got talking, and Sat's been amazingly supportive. Like, he's such a connector of people. And Denton was looking for new artists to work with. And Sat basically said, "Have you heard of Waiting for Smith?" And hadn't come across his radar. We connected. It's like, let's have a meeting. I went to his second, he has 2 studios. He's now in Rack Studios, but he has a place in Strong Room as well in East London. And I walked in and we sat down and we didn't stop talking for 2 hours. I was like, this is my guy. Like, and he was like, I feel the same. Like, and I just basically told him the mission for the album, what I wanted it to be about, and a few of the songs, played him some tracks, and he's like, we got to do this. Yeah. So, and that was it.
I think that's also the other aspect too. It's like of collaborating. Is that people see the members on stage, and they see, but they don't really see, I guess, like the other people who are also doing their contributions as well in the background, like that. You know what I mean? And I think like producers, as well as like sound engineers, people who do mixing, everything, like they're also integral to the sound as well. You know what I mean? And
so
there's that
important.
kind of, and it's that kind of, you were talking about a brotherhood and a sisterhood. I think like, the people who do the production, the post-production, they don't really get like a look into, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's so true. It's why it's so nice that when you do shows and stuff, to always thank people and give that moment to shout them out and stuff, because like engineers, people only look at them when things go wrong.
Yeah.
And you're like, what's going on? You're like, hey, but when things are going right, no one almost should notice an engineer, and that's kind of their job. But at the same time, it's so nice to thank them, because when you get a good engineer, it's like an instrument. It's the same thing. They're playing your sound.
Yeah.
And I learned that from a guy called Will. He has a studio. I just called him the other day, actually. And we started together he was one of the first studios I walked into when I got out of bed. And he's just like, I would say, up there with the best engineers in the world. Like he just makes sound into something where you're like, what is this? I want to go closer to it. He had that thing, and I was so honored to like walk into a studio one day and playing some songs on the piano, and we just went, right, let's do something together. And that was definitely, he believed in me as well. He was one of my first supporters, along with my dad, who became my manager at that point. And both of them believed in me, and it was just like, cool, let's do this. And I think those people need to be thanked more, definitely, because the team makes something super special.
I guess one final thing I'll ask is that an aspect that you're interested in too, and potentially transitioning to, or even just doing on the side, is the production side of things, or?
Yeah, I mean, I love production, and I think, I've got a dream to build a studio here. Would be really, really cool. And I know the basics of things about how to work a bit with Pro Tools and how to work a bit with Logic. It's just I've always been lucky to work with such talented producers, like from the get-go, producers and engineers who just know so much. And so I've picked up along the way, but I still feel like, I think what I would like to do is be able to make my demos here. And if they turn into a record where I think, actually, this is sounding really good, then that's great. But I also just love the collaborative thing where a producer might see something that you don't see in it. Mm-hmm. But to be able to have the option of both, to be able to be at your home studio and have a home space and just be like, it's 1 a.m. and I can't sleep and I've got this idea that needs to come out, to go down and just lay it straight in and just get a groove feeling and just be like, whoa, what is this? Because it is magic. Discovering songs for me still is magic. When you discover a good one, it's really like it's a spiritual experience. It really is. You feel connected to the whole. Anyone who's written a song will say the same thing, I think.
Absolutely. I think I'll leave it there. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up, or?
No, not at all. I love Dublin, and I'm a big fan of Ireland, like loads of Irish cousins. So when I'm next over, I don't know if you do nights or whatever you guys do, but love to buy you a drink or coffee or whatever you want.
Totally, man.
Thanks.
Absolutely, and I really appreciate your time. And I have no doubt that the next album and everything you do will do very well.
Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate it, man.
Appreciate
Cheers.
it, Harry. Take care.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We hope you enjoyed and stay tuned for more.